Before we begin today's story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy emotionally driven stories that stay with you long after the video ends. These stories aren't loud or rushed. They quietly settle into your heart. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when I decided to replace my broken coffee maker. At 60, my life had settled into a quiet rhythm. My children were grown. My marriage had ended years ago. The house was peaceful, sometimes comfortingly so, sometimes painfully so. I had learned to live with that silence. The small appliance store downtown felt warmer than the large chain stores. Soft lighting, neatly arranged shelves, and the comforting scent of cardboard and metal. That's where I met Jake. He looked young, early 20s maybe. Tall, relaxed, with the kind of smile that didn't feel rehearsed. When he asked if I needed help, his voice carried an easy kindness. "I'm just here for a coffee maker," I said. "Then you're in the right place," he replied with a grin. What should have been a quick purchase turned into a conversation. He asked what kind of coffee I liked. Strong or mild? Single cup or full pot? He listened carefully, explaining features without rushing me. There was something refreshing about the way he spoke, like he genuinely enjoyed helping. When he offered to carry the machine to my car, I thanked him. But then he surprised me. "I'm actually on break," he said casually. "If you live nearby, I could help set it up." I hesitated. Letting a stranger into my home wasn't something I normally did. But something about him felt harmless, sincere. And maybe, if I was honest, I was tired of always saying no to life. "All right," I said finally. The walk to my house was quiet but comfortable. I found myself unusually aware of my surroundings. The sound of our footsteps, the cool air, the small distance between us. When we stepped inside, I suddenly saw my home the way a stranger might see it. Cozy. Lived in. Slightly cluttered. Personal. He didn't comment on anything unusual. Instead, he simply placed the box on the kitchen counter and got to work. "You've got a nice place," he said. "It's small," I replied. "It's warm," he corrected gently. The new machine hummed to life after a few minutes. The scent of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, rich and comforting. He poured 2 cups. "To new coffee," he said, lifting his mug. "To unexpected help," I answered. We stood there for a moment, sipping quietly. It wasn't dramatic. There was no music swelling in the background. Just 2 people sharing a small, simple moment. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "Would it be okay if I stopped by again sometime? Just to say hello?" The question caught me off guard. "Yes," I heard myself say. After he left, the house felt different. Not louder, not brighter, just different. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel so heavy. Something small had shifted, and I couldn't quite explain why I didn't expect him to come back so soon. The next morning felt different. I woke up earlier than usual, sunlight slipping softly through the curtains. For a moment, I forgot why my heart felt lighter. Then I remembered Jake. I found myself tidying up without thinking, folding the throw blanket properly, straightening the books on the shelf, even changing into something a little nicer than my usual oversized cardigan. It had been years since I'd prepared my home, or myself, for anyone. By noon, I told myself I was being ridiculous. He was just a young man who helped with a coffee maker. That was all. And then the doorbell rang. My heart jumped in a way it hadn't in a long time. When I opened the door, there he stood, hands tucked casually into his jacket pockets, a small paper bag dangling from one finger. "I brought muffins," he said, smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world. "That's dangerously charming of you," I replied, stepping aside to let him in. The house felt less awkward this time, more intentional, like we were both choosing to be there. We sat at the kitchen table again, steam rising from fresh cups of coffee. The conversation flowed easier now. He told me about working at the shop while finishing school, about how he liked fixing things, not just appliances but anything broken. "There's something satisfying about making something work again," he said. I smiled at that. "And what about you?" he asked. "What did you used to love doing?" No one had asked me that in years. I talked about books I once dreamed of writing, about traveling when I was younger, about how life had quietly narrowed over time. He listened, really listened, like my words mattered. At one point he looked at me thoughtfully. "You don't seem 60, he said. I laughed. "What does 60 look like?" "Not closed off," he answered carefully. "You still have this spark. Like you're not done living yet." The words lingered in the air. Not done living yet. When he left that afternoon, he didn't rush. He paused at the door again. "I like talking to you," he said simply. "I like talking to you too," I admitted. After he was gone, I sat back down at the table. The muffins were half-eaten. 2 coffee cups sat side by side. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was something quieter. Attention. Curiosity. The beginning of possibility. For the first time in a long while, I found myself wondering what tomorrow might bring. And that question alone felt like a gift. By the third visit, it no longer felt accidental. Jake didn't bring muffins this time. He brought a small plant, a simple green fern in a white pot. "For your kitchen window," he said. It looked like it needed something alive. I raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying my house isn't alive?" He smiled. "I'm saying it deserves company." The words were light, but they carried weight. We placed the plant near the sink. Sunlight touched its leaves, making them glow. For a moment, we stood side by side, not speaking. That's when I felt it. The space between us. Not physical distance. That was small. Emotional distance. The unspoken reality. I was 60. He was barely in his 20s. The world would see something strange in this picture. Maybe I did too. "Jake," I said quietly, turning toward him. "Do you ever think this is unusual?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But unusual doesn't always mean wrong." I crossed my arms gently, more for comfort than defense. "You have your whole life ahead of you," I said. "Friends your age. Experiences. I don't want to be a phase." The word tasted bitter. He looked at me carefully, not dismissing my concern, not laughing it off. "I'm not here because I'm bored," he said. "And I'm not here to prove anything. I just like being here." There it was again. That calm certainty. But doubt doesn't disappear just because someone speaks kindly. That night, after he left, I sat alone with my thoughts. I imagined what my children would say, what neighbors might whisper. I imagined headlines in my own mind, exaggerated and cruel. Was I being foolish? Or was I finally allowing myself something unexpected? The next time Jake came by, I didn't open the door right away. I stood behind it, hand resting on the handle, heart racing. I realized something important in that pause. This wasn't about him being young. It wasn't about what people might think. It was about whether I believed I still deserved connection. I opened the door. He smiled like he always did. And in that moment, I understood something else. The space between us wasn't about age. It was about courage. And slowly, carefully, I was beginning to find mine again. The days that followed felt fragile. Jake still came by, but something had shifted. Not distance exactly, just awareness. Every laugh felt a little more meaningful. Every silence a little heavier. One afternoon, rain tapped softly against the windows while we sat across from each other at the kitchen table. "You've been quiet," he noticed. "I've been thinking," I admitted. "About us." The word us hung between us like a question neither of us had fully answered. "Yes," I said honestly. "About what this means. About what it could mean." He didn't interrupt. "I don't want to wake up one day and realize I misunderstood something," I continued. "I don't want to hold on to a moment that was never meant to last." Jake leaned back slightly, considering his words before speaking. "I don't have everything figured out," he said. "But I know how I feel when I'm here. It's calm. It's real. I'm not pretending to be anyone else." His honesty didn't feel dramatic. It felt steady. "But life is complicated," I whispered. "People talk. People judge." "People always talk," he replied gently. "The question is, do we let them decide what's allowed to matter?" The rain grew heavier outside, filling the silence. For years I had lived cautiously, carefully, avoiding risks that might shake the fragile balance of my quiet world. And yet here I was, heart racing over coffee and conversation. "I need to know something," I said. "Anything. If this becomes more than friendship." Are you prepared for that? Truly? Not just today, but when it's difficult. He didn't answer immediately. That, more than anything, told me he was taking it seriously. I can't promise forever, he said finally. No one can. But I can promise honesty. I won't disappear.